next time there is no next time. So today we are going to study reaction manager basically. The topic is reaction manager, how we bind IK and FK to our bone structure. For that we are going to study a single hand arm structure and we are going to blend between the IK and FK. So let's open up bones in top. We are going to create bones again. Here you need to create, simple hand structure. Okay, this will be the main body structure or the main skeleton that will bind with the skin. Okay, so what I can do is I can rename it, or you can rename later. I will just duplicate this thing to create a copy, and this will be the IK bone. Okay, where do you rename again? What happened? This will be my IK bone, IKB1, IKB2, bone 2. Okay, so that later we need to we can see what is happening. Now we are gonna duplicate this again and create one more copy of it and rename it as FK. FKB1, FKB2. Okay, so both the three bones structures have been created. One structure will go with the mesh, or mesh will bind with it. Second structure is gonna bind with is gonna blend. They will have movement of IK, and third structure will have movement of FK, and this is gonna blend between IK and FK as per our requirement. So now what we need to do is, first of all, we need to link this to this, this to this, but not in the translation. We don't need this thing to move from here. We need this thing to rotate, and rotation basically in over here we call it as orientation. So we need to link it only on the orientation axis. So how we can do that? In animation we have something called constraint. If I select this thing and go to constraint, I'll just bring this thing out. Now what you can do is basically I can orient this to this one. Okay, so what does this means is basically if I rotate this bone is gonna rotate. I'll do a quick Control Z, and now what I want this bone to follow this also. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this again and orient it again to this one. Similarly, I'm gonna orient this to this, this to this, and this to this again. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select this mesh joint again and orient it over here. Select this again, click and orient. Orientation done. Now if I rotate this thing, you can see that, if I rotate FK, this is trying to take the position of IK and FK both. It is trying to blend between both the parameters. How we can see, while going to the motion tab, if I select this, you will be able to find the orientation constraint tab. Here you can find IK and FK, both are being linked to this. This was the IK bone and this was the FK bone. B1 was the bone one, this, and FK B1 is this one. Okay, so you can see here 50-50% they have taken. If I reduce this thing to 0, like IK to 0, now it's gonna follow completely this bolt FK, and it's not gonna behave according to ik. Similarly, if I reverse it, like make it, you can see it's not following right now. Following only this because this has been linked to this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reverse it, like make this thing 50 and this thing 0. Okay. Now if I try to rotate this thing, if I try to rotate, this bone is not rotating. Okay. So you can see both the things, both the bones have been attached to this and this. Both the bones have been attached to both the axes. Who is it? Fine. Now what we are going to do is we have to create a controller so that, have we linked this? Have we linked this joint? We have already linked. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a controller so that I don't need to switch between these ik and fk each and every time. But we haven't rigged this character, we need to rig this also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and create an ik controller, ik handle to this. So ik solver, hi solver, click and select this joint, and it's done. Something wrong. ik solver, hi solver, and now it has been created. Now if I move this thing, you can see that ik, it's moving like ik, and this is already an fk, so you don't need to worry about this. Let's check the values. We are not gonna, first of all let's create, remove ik b1 to 0 onto this and onto this also, ik b2 0. Okay. So now it's not gonna follow my ik1. So if I move this thing, you can see it's not following. It's not following. Okay. But it's a headache job that I cannot change each and every time like this. It's a headache job for an animator. So what we need to do is we need to create a controller for it, and in that controller, if I single-handedly change, it should change throughout. Like right now we have just two joints. Suppose we need to change in legs also, in hands also, like in fingers also. So it will be a headache to go to each and every joint and make it 0. Something like this. So what basically Rigor does is basically it creates a controller, and that on that controller it links these parameters, and suppose we change the parameter to the controller, or the value in the bones will change. So what I'm going to do is I will create a simple controller with the help of circle, a non-renderable object. Okay, let's create, and this will be my, or its controller, like IKFK controller. Okay, so you can rename it. Wait, IKFK switch. Okay, so if I see over here, you can see radius is, we have only one parameter. This is called parameter of this thing. If I move this thing, the radius is changing. But I want some more parameters over here in which we change, so IKFK should change. Okay, so we are going to add a parameter over here. So if you are forgetting what is the name that is there in which we can add something, then you can simply select this, go to modifier, and you will find this thing parameter. So we need to add a parameter to this object. So I'm going to go to animation, and here we have parameter editor. If I click over here, I'll rename this thing as IKFK. IKFK switch, SWITCH. Okay, so I have named it, and now I need to define its figure. What kind of figure should be it? Whether it's a float figure or integer figure. In the last class we discussed what is float, what is integer, what is characters, what are those things. So if you, I'll give you a rough idea. Integer basically those numbers from minus infinity to plus infinity, it doesn't have decimal values. Float have decimal values. Double float have 2 to 3 places. After that also it can take the values decimal. After decimal, more than 2 to 3 places it can take values. So, and characters, basically ABCD that you type, those are characters, and strings, all the words that we write down are called strings. So these are the things, these are the values that we can provide. Right now we want something scalar, like it should go from 0 to 1 or 0 to 10 if you want to create a blend between IK and FK. So suppose you want to create a blend, that then you should have a value between 0 and 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down right now take a value of integer only, means whatever that value that we will be providing to this IKFK switch, that will be of integer type. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify the range over here 10. That's it. This is the only thing that we needed to do, and from here you can see IKFK switch. I can go from 0 to 10 over here. Okay, so now I have created a switch. Let's add it to our parameter. So simply add the parameter and it's done. And in the last class you also asked that how we can delete. So we have something delete over here, edit delete. If you want to delete this parameter, simply go to edit delete. It's going to ask which parameter you're going to delete, and over here you can apply. I'm not going to delete right now. Now we have created a parameter for this thing. This has got a parameter of IK custom attribute, that is IKFK switch, that will go from 0 to 10. Now what I want is, I want at 0 what happens is this, our bone structure should follow this one, and at 1 it should follow this one. This at 10 I want this thing to follow this one. Okay, so what I am going to do is, look closely, I am going to open up my reaction manager for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the animation tab, and over here you can find reaction manager. Okay, and now this we need to create, this we have to make as a driver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and go to this driver, add reaction driver. Okay, so I'll click this and click over here, and I want to change its values. What kind of value? I have created a custom attribute for this one. So I'll go to custom attributes, and over there we need IKFK switch. So before going over here, or we can define, before going over here, what I'm going to do is I will first check in the motion tab whether I have done 0 or not for one IK, because we are going to change it in the next one. So I have checked IKB1, means for IK I have done 0. For this one, let's check. IKB2 is also 0. So I have already done this thing. Check whether this is of 50% or not. You can write 100 also, but since this is 0, it's going to follow till 100. No need to worry. Here also, it's done. So this is already set. Okay, since I had done it in last class also, so I applied it in the beginning only. Now I have to set this thing as a driver. So I'll click onto this, click over here, transform, no, object, custom attributes, IKFK switch. Okay, so driver has been created. Now I want to add driven in. So I'll go to here and click over here. Okay, so in this it's going to transform, means transform. And how it's going to transform? Rotationally. And in rotationally there is a constant that has been applied, and that is of orientation, weight 0 and weight 1. Both we need to link. So I'll select this. Again I'm going to click, select, transform, rotation, orientation, and link this parameter also to this. Okay, and this same thing I'm going to add to this also, because in the last class we didn't attach this. In this class I'm going to attach this also. So this will be the driven. So I'll add one more. Click, transform, rotation, orientation, this. Again I'm going to add, click, transformation, rotation, orientation, and this. So you can see bone 01, orientation, bone 01, 02, 02, both the orientation have been marked for this one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mode for this one. So state have been defined. Now what I want to flip the values. So I click on create mode now and simply change the modes. Like I want to change the values of this to 10. And what else I want to change? I want to switch the motion of these things. So I'll go to the motion parameter over here and switch the values. Right now it is 0, so I'll make it 50, and this one 0. For this also I'll do the same. 50 and 0. I hope it works. So once you are done with this creating the mode, now you need to assign or create the state. So one state have been created where everything was in reverse state. Now for this one I am gonna again create a state. So click and that state has been created. Let's check what has happened. I hope it has, and let's get out of the create mode now. So select this. Right now the values are, if you can see, 10. So in 10 I think, oh, it's working. Okay, and if I switch this thing to 0, it is working. Okay, in this thing should not work. So now my IK has been attached to both of these things. So in one go you can attach several parameters and change the states and make it possible, make a switch. If I place 5 over here, it's gonna blend between both. So now if I rotate this thing, it's gonna go 50% of this state and 50% of this state. So this is the way we make changes or we create IK FK switch. Understood? That's it. I'm gonna stop.